Hello, welcome everyone. I am Sharon. I'm part of the customer success team here at Xello. I'm happy to see you all for our first Xello Remote Roundtable in the new year. This is the spot to hear how your peers are tackling challenges and supporting students in their future planning. Today, we are talking about middle school and how to get this group of kids in those transitional years really excited about career exploration. We brought together two expert panelists who have launched future readiness programs that engage students in middle school while also creating the foundation needed to really help them grow and develop into high school and beyond. They're going to share how they got started, how they enable educators in their schools to extend their program efforts, and really focus on what activities and lessons have worked best with their students in their own districts. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the format and a little bit of housekeeping. So today we're going to pose questions to our expert panelists, and then we're going to have a dedicated time for Q&A at the end. Please feel free to ask any questions that you'd like. There's a bottom of your at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a Q&A button. You can definitely pop questions in there. Our Xello team is monitoring them. And I also want to note that the webinar today, it is being recorded, and we will email you a copy of that tomorrow. So I also want to just back up and talk a little bit about Xello and how we started. So we actually started in 1997, and our company has been helping districts across North America ever since become college, career, and future ready. We truly come from humble beginnings. Really, we started out as a 3-person company, and now there are over 150 of us working to support you, your colleagues, your peers, students. We literally support thousands of districts and millions of students from coast to coast. And the way that our program was designed and used, it's really meant to support all K-12 students, regardless of background, ability, or pathway. That's really important to our mission here, to help those students build personalized plans to help them reach their full academic potential and achieve future success. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our lovely panelists. So first, I'm going to start off with Laura Barker. She is the District IPS Coordinator in Wichita, Kansas. Laura, I'm going to hand it over to you for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hello, I'm Laura Barker, and I am the District IPS Coordinator for the Wichita Public Schools. We are the largest school district in Kansas. I started out, I completed my master's in counseling, marriage and family counseling, and I got a job at a technical college. And in getting the job at the technical college, I quickly learned my passion for helping people explore careers. So I ended up going back to finish my degree or change my counseling into education or school counseling. And I worked as a high school counselor for 8 years, and this is my 5th year in my role at the district office. It's kind of evolved over time since I've been in the district office. I was first hired in the CTE office and to basically do IPSs at the high school level, and then we expanded those to the middle school level. And now for 2 years, our district is no longer CTE, is still in our office, but we are the college and career ready office. And so our whole focus has switched from not just the CTE training and the curriculum development and that kind of thing, but to truly making sure that our kids are ready for life after high school.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. And now I'd like to introduce Anna Holland. She is a school counselor at Ricci Middle School in Rhode Island. You know what? I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly. Anna, let me hand it over to you, and please correct me if I was wrong.
Sure, it's Ricci Middle School.
Oh,
So I have been a counselor since 1999, which is hard to believe. It's been that long. I've been a middle school counselor since 2000, and I love middle school kids. For the past 3 years, until this August, I was the school counseling fellow for the Rhode Island Department of Education. And in that work, I worked a lot around our individual learning plan implementation, which focused on career exploration, academic supports, goal setting, all the things that are connected to Xello. Xello is actually one of the vetted vendors that Rhode Island is using. And so I work closely with Xello around that work. And I have also worked with counselors around professional development in those areas. And now this year I am back at my middle school and getting to try out some of the things I've been thinking about for the past 3 years, which has been really fun in utilizing Xello in our individual learning plan for our students. We use it 6 through 12. And in another month, I'm actually going to be moving back to ride as the school counseling educational specialist there as a permanent position in supporting school counselors in Rhode Island. So, I also work very closely with our Rhode Island School Counselor Association in supporting our counselors.
Thank you, Anna, so much. We are truly so lucky to have both of you with us today. A lot of knowledge and experience between the two of you, and we're so grateful you can share your wisdom with us. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into our questions. Anna, we're going to start with you on this one. I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about your college and career readiness program for middle schools in particular. Maybe you can talk about how it got started.
So in Rhode Island, we started with having an individual learning plan back in, I want to say it was like 2006. And in my specific middle school, what we did is, this was before we were one-to-one, we started thinking about how we can get kids to explore their interests, think about different careers. And we did a lot of it through binders and paper before we could do it on the computer. And one-to-one has been a godsend because you can do a lot more with it. And the ILP initially was just the idea of students setting goals and doing some exploration, but there wasn't a lot of structure around it. In 2018, Rhode Island created a scope and sequence for each grade where there were certain components that need to be covered. And so in my school, we shifted to using that as our guide and creating activities and lessons around those specific topics, and then sort of building from there and creating. And we also try to work with our high schools so that we're doing this 6 through 12, so that we're building each year, so that students are going from like a broad experience and then sort of narrowing down and being able to think about the path they want to choose and be able to pick classes that are appropriate for them and the goals that they want to achieve. Within our district, counselors have been the lead on these initiatives and sort of creating the lessons. In my specific district, I create a lot of the lessons, but my teachers do help deliver them. So that is how we sort of work together in tandem, and I deliver some and they deliver some. And so it's a joint effort in the delivery, but the counselors kind of create the framework and create a Google Classroom so that teachers know what to follow and don't have to do a lot of the prep work.
Mm-hmm. Anna, I'm wondering if I can just ask a quick follow-up question. Like maybe you can share what's one program goal that you guys have that's specifically related to middle school?
So, well, first of all, like a very basic goal is that all of our students, 100% of our students will work on the different activities we have for them in each year. So that each student is going to get on, in our case, it's the Xello platform. They're going to work with their teachers, and each student has, depending on the grade, but generally it's like 6 lessons at least. So they're going to participate in the 6 lessons, and they're going to complete those lessons within Xello. So like our goal is 100% participation and trying to engage our students as much as possible. And within that, we have specific goals around students selecting a couple of careers they're interested in, completing different specific activities like Matchmaker or the learning styles, and thinking about their interests and how those connect with careers. And we also have some custom lessons that we've created that we have students complete.
That's awesome. I love that. 100%. You're like, no, we're not settling for less. It needs to be every student. That's fantastic. Okay, so Laura, I'm going to ask you the same question. Tell us a little bit about your CCR program for middle schoolers and how it got started.
So our process is very, very similar to what Anna just explained. I think maybe like a few years before that, like 2016, we did start doing like the Matchmaker at the middle school level, but we basically had a checklist that teachers were like, check, we did that. And then that was it. There wasn't a whole lot of follow-up conversations, anything going on with these students. So we really have worked on, and still working, I always say this is a marathon, to change the culture, but to work on really digging back into those lessons. A lot of times I have parents or even teachers that are critics saying, well, it said that they were going to be, one thing. And I'm like, no, it didn't. And does not pick one thing, that they are going to be. Let's explore all of these. So really getting the teachers, the parents, the students to really dig in to that is what our focus has been at both the middle school and the high school over the last 4 years. The expectation is that 100% will get on and engage, and to have some kind of a profile in Xello. We do track the lessons that are completed and that kind of thing. And we're at like 94% have chosen at least one career of interest that they've gone in and hearted and said that they are actually, they go in and like it and heart it in Xello. I also think another big focus of ours, though, is when we rolled this out and continued, is there was a lot of great things happening in our school, but they were kind of individual great things. Maybe, we have several different middle schools. And so this teacher might've been doing something really great, but without Xello, we didn't have really a place to house that or track that. And so really getting the students to make the connections. We use Xello, whether it's the timeline or putting things on their storyboard to make sure that they're understanding you did not just do this assignment in your social studies class, or that speaker did not just come in, to fill the day. This was a connection for you and your future and looking at your careers. And so really making those connections for the students.
Yeah, I love that. You guys both have some really good stats and lofty goals. I really like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to our second question, which is talking a little bit more about the key elements. So Anna, let's start with you again. What are the key elements to your middle school focus program? Maybe there are different aspects. You can break it down for us a little bit and help everyone understand, how you do break it down.
Sure. So can you hear me okay with the mask?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay. So we work together with the students to explore how their work in their classes connect with the world of work for their future. So one of the things we sort of try to connect through a lot of the lessons is like, when you're doing social studies or you're doing math, here's some of the connections of how that might connect to a career you'll have. And so using some of the exploration they have and making those connections to help the work be more real world for them. Why do I have to do math? Well, if you want to be a chef, you're going to need to understand fractions and you're going to need to be able to do measurement. And so it is important that you do the math for that. And so making some of those connections. Some of the pieces that we have within the program. So obviously we have academic, career, and social emotional are three of our pieces that we have within our individual learning plan and within our program. So we talk about setting academic goals, we talk about setting social emotional goals, and we talk about setting career goals. for a middle schooler, career goal looks very different than a high schooler. But when I talk with kids about, like, a lot of times the goal setting lessons are when I'm going in. And so talking to them about their career exploration goals, it's trying to break it down for them as, like, okay, if, for some kids, they might know what they want to do. Maybe they think they want to be a professional athlete, or they think they want to be a lawyer, and thinking about, okay, so what's a goal that will help you get to that? And so if you want to be a doctor, you're going to need to do really well in math. So what do you need to do to help you do really well in math? Or, like, what do you need? What's a goal you could have, like, with your math courses to be able to help you get into a good college, to help you get into med school? So, like, thinking about those long-term things, and then thinking about the short-term things in terms of career exploration and career goals. And for social emotional, sort of guiding them through thinking about whether it's they're having test anxiety, or they're having difficulty with their friends. What are some of the goals they can set to kind of work on to help them with that? And for academic, a lot of times we also do a report card reflection. And so those two things do work pretty well together. But thinking about at the beginning of the year, what are your goals for the year? And then we always do a reflection also on those goals afterwards. How are you doing with meeting those goals? Does the goal still make sense? And then we have the exploration of their interests, their learning styles, the personality styles, and taking those pieces and then starting to look at actual careers that connect with that. So, like, that's the other piece of where they're diving in a little bit deeper into the actual careers. And then as they're getting closer to 8th grade, we start to also look at look a little bit more at, like, what is the education that you're going to need? What are some schools that have that? What do you need to get into those schools? So that they're thinking about that before they're going to high school, when they're going to be making choices about courses that are going to impact what they can do, moving forward. Hopefully that answered your question. I'm not sure if that's what you meant by the elements, but that's sort of the general, like, pieces of the program.
Yeah, for sure, Anna, that was awesome. You really broke it down and helped us understand how you have those 3 focus areas. And also, I think you laid out how it's very important to really long-term plan, and that it's really a full program, right? That this is the foundation and the starting point for high school and beyond. And I think it's so important what you mentioned about having students set goals and then revisit them. Not just forgetting about them or ignoring them, but let's actually revisit. Let's see if we need to adjust. I love that. Okay, so Laura, obviously, same question for you. What are the key elements in your middle school program?
Well, although I do have a counseling background, and I work very, very closely with the counselors in our district. As I said before, I am in the College and Career Ready office, which is a separate office from our counseling programs, or our head counselors anyway. Although I attend all of those meetings, I mean, like we're separate, but we're very intertwined. So we have IPS coordinators, which is a supplemental position at each of our middle schools. And it's, when I say supplemental, so it's added on. It's not their full-time job. It's something that they volunteered to do in addition to. Many of those are counselors. Some of them are data leaders. Some of them are a math teacher. So it's basically principals were to identify people within their schools that really had a passion for working with the kids in their future and doing this type of work. And so that's where we have gotten those people. So I think the really cool, interesting component to that is that we're putting plans in place. So the lessons themselves are being delivered a lot of times through Google Classroom and videos and that kind of thing via things that we've made. But their homeroom teachers are actually kind of owning when that happens and how that happens. And I mean, I'm always saying that, this is a big culture shift and we're doing a marathon, so it's not perfect everywhere. But the idea is that everybody's getting into Xello, whether it's not just their counselor, whether it is the principal that they're meeting with that can go in there and have that conversation about what are your goals, what are your plans. A lot of times they're, their coach, if we can get the coach in there, in addition to their counselors or homeroom teachers, but we're really trying to expand this and make it a district-wide tool, not just something for the counselors. And I think these kids, they walk into one classroom and they have this conversation, and then they walk into the other classroom and they have to repeat the whole entire conversation. So we're really trying to get to the point where everybody gets onto Xello just as much as they get onto our student information system. And instead of starting over with the conversation every time Sharon walks into the room or gets a new teacher, we can go into Xello and we can continue and add to that conversation and continue that process and path with the students, as opposed to starting over all the time.
Laura, that's amazing. I love this really like holistic, unified approach. I know when I was in school, my coaches had a big influence on me. I would have loved to talk to them about this. So I love how you're really facilitating that approach for your students. Okay, we're going to go ahead and dive into the next question. And I actually really like this one because, Laura, we're going to start with you this time. The question is, what gets students excited about career exploration? And I'm always curious at every age level, what is getting those students excited? Tell us.
Well, middle school students either are super excited or not excited at all.
Fair enough.
But what has worked best for us is hands-on approaches. We're lucky to have the WSU Tech, which is a local college, and they have this mobile maker, I don't know, unit that they bring. It's basically like a big bus, and it's like a portable lab that they have like some virtual welding in it. They use Z-Space, which they come in and set up the computer labs. And so they're able to do a lot of hands-on activities with those students and help them to explore different careers that way. We also have brought in, we have a lot of inner city kids that their realm of the world and knowledge is very narrow. And so we've also done things where brought in all kinds of different peoples just in the Wichita Public Schools and said, okay, you go to school and you think about, your teacher and your counselor and your principal, but have you ever thought about the transportation system, the bus that you take to get to school and what all goes into that and how many people, so we could bring in the person who's in charge of the logistics of the busing system, the maintenance people, the drivers themselves, from the food service center, the people who are actually putting the food together, not just the ones handing out. So we've tried to just take their world on a daily basis and break down all of the careers that are in it. Not necessarily that all of them are going to be interested in those, but their world of work is so narrow. So we try to expand it. Also found that bringing the high school students that are involved in the CTSOs down to the middle schools, get them excited about, instead of this long range plan of what am I going to do when I'm an adult, if we just say, what are you going to do when you're in high school? 4 years from now, these are the activities, clubs, CTE classes that you could be taking to prepare you.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think a lot of middle schoolers, they might be anxious about high school, but I think it's much easier to envision, what am I going to be in 10th grade, right? Or when I'm a junior versus like when I'm 35, right? It's a little bit easier to get there. So I like that approach a lot. Okay, Anna, same question for you. What gets your students excited?
So I would say one of the same things that Laura did is bringing the high school students who are in the CTE programs down to talk with our students. We bring them down to talk with our 8th graders about the possibilities and what it's like in the program and the types of activities they do. And it really does get them really excited. We actually just had our high school down the other day, and the kids were like really pumped up about it and very excited to get involved and sort of working with them. So like in 2 weeks, I'm going to be going in and doing course selection. And so we'll be making some of those linkages between some of the exploration they've been doing on Xello and some of the careers they're interested in and some of the opportunities they have at the high school and how that can help them get there. And now they've heard a lot about it. One of the other things that gets our kids really excited is we have like some programming in our middle school that is connected to different career pathways. So one example is we have like a mechatronics program, which is sort of combining different types of technology, robotics, engineering, and they infuse that into our math and our English, and the kids love that, and they love the hands-on experience and sort of making those connections between the different types of careers that they can explore with that. And when they have the opportunity to be able to talk with different people in the field and see the different kinds of things. So in our middle school, we had a career exploration grant, and one of our tech teachers had used the funds to create a program where they connected with drone people who flew the drones, and the kids learned all about the drones, and they were learning about how to work on them, and then they actually talked with them. They also learned about like the sea drones, like so the ones that go like underwater, and they spoke with them, and so like they got to really ask questions and learn a little bit more, and that got them excited. Matchmaker is a huge hit with my kids. They love doing Matchmaker. They ask me often, can they reset it so they could do it again? So the kids are doing it in 6th grade, and like by 8th grade, so many of my kids will say, can I redo it? Because I think my things have changed, and they love it, and they get really excited about like the results that they see. And they love to talk about like the different things that are showing up. So they just really get pumped up about it. And another thing is like when we create like lessons that really are engaging them, I think the kids tend to, and they get to talk more, like see the connection. I think they find it more fun and more useful. So like for my 6th graders, when I go to do a goals lesson, rather than just going in and talking to them about goals, I usually come in and start with an activity where I have them each do like a different sound, I got this off of like a resource online. They snap their fingers, tap their feet, make all different sounds. And I have them just do it randomly. And we make a lot of noise. I ask them why we think we did that. We have a discussion about it. And then I'm like, okay, now we're going to have a goal. We're going to make a plan of what we're going to do. And I talk to them about, we're going to make it the sound of a rainstorm. And then I instruct them on what to do. And it actually does sound like a rainstorm. And then we talk about like, how did that make a difference? Setting a goal, like what did we achieve? And sort of like setting the field for like, this is why we set a goal. We can actually achieve something that makes sense for us that we want to achieve if we set a goal and we make a plan. So, and then we set the goal. So I think, having some sort of fun activity, kids love, 6th graders love to like make noise when you give them the opportunity. So, doing those kinds of things can be exciting for them.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's so cool that you've found a way to engage with them on their level, taking something that might be considered disruptive, like making a lot of noise, and saying, actually, let's do this. And this ties in perfectly to the logic behind why we set goals in the first place. That's a great example. And also, I just wanted to touch on, did you say mechatronics? Is that what
Yes.
Mechatronics? That's
Mechatronics.
So cool.
Yeah. It's a really fun program.
It's actually the first time I've ever heard of that. My daughter's only 3, and she took like her first STEM class. And this sounds just like a continuation of that idea. I love this. I'm going to definitely look into it. Mechatronics for everyone on the line with us. Okay. So let's go ahead and dive into our next question. I'm curious if you can talk about, and Laura, we're going to start with you on this one, what new program tactics that you might have enacted or might be trying for the first time this school year in 2021, 2022.
So we are piloting Course Planner this year, and so far so good. it's really, so right now we're actually doing it at one of our high schools, but one of our biggest ones, Southeast High School. So they are going around to the middle schools right now. So in addition to the presentation of high school students, the CTE presentations, they are going in and they're actually selecting their courses. They can go in and they can select their courses when the presentation is happening, because we are also one-to-one, which is so helpful when it comes to Xello. They can go to a presentation. Basically, it's open. The course planner is open. They can go in and they can look at the courses, find out all of the high school courses that are offered at that school, what the prerequisites are, what it's preparing them for. And they can do that, you know, over a course of like 3 or 4 months. So as they're having different conversations and hearing it, it's not just like a 1 day or even a 1 week time for them to get it on the paper as it was before. And then we're going in and it gets closed down and it feeds really well into or all of our samples and batches so far have fed really well into Synergy, which is our student information system. So we're actually using Xello as our enrollment tool. And so we're having those conversations, you know, are you selecting a class that's preparing you for your goals, for your futures, and aligning it all within the same system. So that has been really going good, and it gives more validity instead of Xello being this IPS system, you know, over to the side. Again, it helps everybody get in and use the system for the students over and over again. We also have the interest where the students go in and select their interest. We have more and more teachers that are using that. You know, I have a new class coming in. I've never met these kids. Let me go in and look at their interest and see what they're about. Or if, you know, Sharon's in my class and for some reason, I'm just not feeling like Sharon and I are connecting. So I can go into Sharon's Xello and look at it and kind of figure out what Sharon's interests are. What are the different ways to touch Sharon that prior to Xello, we didn't have all of those tools to connect with the students.
Yeah, I really like that. So it's not only about the students being able to reflect and self-identify, but then your educators being able to use that as another way to connect with their students. So I think that's a really good point you made about the interests. Yeah.
One other thing that we're doing, Sharon, is we're really using it also as kind of a targeted marketing tool for our students, because being in Wichita, we get a lot of opportunities for kids. And how do you get all of those opportunities out to the right people? You know, it used to, you know, they would put flyers up and put them on the announcements and maybe send a note home, but people are only listening if it applies to them and if they're ready to listen. And so now we're able to, when there is, you know, a STEM camp, like you were talking about, or a Women in Engineering Day, and it's 6th through 12th graders, I can now go in and specifically send all of the students that have marked that they're interested in similar careers or interest, and I can tell them specifically about those opportunities, as well as all the other things we used to do.
Yeah, I love that. That's just another way for you to engage with them, right? And sort of open up their world, like you were talking about earlier. Let's expand their view a little bit. That's a really great idea. Okay, so Anna, same question for you. Maybe you can talk about what program tactics you're enacting this school year.
So one of the things that Xello opened up this year was parent accounts, so that parents can log in. So we actually did that as soon as that was available, because one of the things we try to do is encourage our parents to also talk with their kids about the student's ILP, to bring the parents into the conversation, to make them aware of what we're doing. We have a school counseling website that we put our whole scope and sequence on, give information out about, and that's new this year too, give information out about what we're doing, what the ILP is, so that parents are aware, and now they can actually go in and have the conversation with their students about that. And another thing we started to really use a lot more this year is using the recording from Xello and looking at like what, you know, students have done, what they haven't done, and then I'm sharing that with my teachers who are in the classroom with with their students so that they can follow up with their students if they, haven't been getting on like as many of the activities, to kind of make sure that they're engaging in it, because sometimes for some reason maybe somebody was out, so they weren't there that day for the lesson. So this way we're keeping track of making sure that nobody's missing out. We're also starting to look at different ways of engaging all of our students so that, some of our students, it might be more difficult for them to access some of the material. Some of our students who might have learning differences. And so we're looking at different ways of how they can either engage with Xello, the platform we have for all our students. And we're also looking at perhaps utilizing the elementary platform that Xello has for some of our students, because that might be more accessible for them. So we're in the beginning stages of that, working with some of our special educators to kind of find the best lessons and best resources for our students, so that 100% of our students can fully engage in their individual learning plan.
Anna, it sounds like those students are really lucky to have you looking out for them. I think that's a wonderful initiative that you guys are looking into. Okay, and you mentioned something about tracking, right? Tracking progress, which was actually a great segue into the next question. So Anna, we're going to stick with you on this one. How do you measure success? Now, I know that that is a very simple question, but I'm sure it can get very complicated and there might be lots of different metrics that you're looking at. So I'm wondering if you can just talk about any of them that you guys might be doing.
So there would be a few things. One is using the reporting features within Xello, and looking at the specific activities to make sure that our students are completing it. The other is we have something called Survey Works in Rhode Island, and we do have some specific questions around career exploration, individual learning plans. And so looking yearly at that data, what students are saying, how they're identifying, whether they're discussing college, whether they're discussing careers with their teachers or educators in the building, whether they feel, their individual learning plan is valuable for them and they're getting something out of it. So looking at that data to see if we're improving in that area and that our students are feeling like they're getting something out of that. We also use exit ticket surveys with students to kind of see how they're feeling about different types of activities that they've done within the ILP, and something that as a state we're starting to pilot is something called the ILP Student Ambassador Program. And so that is going to be something that where we'll gather students as like a focus group almost to talk through the ILP as it is and in each of their buildings, and what are they finding helpful, what do they think needs to change, and also employing them as leaders within their building and to help improve it. And because kids are the best at, like, first of all, coming up with ideas and in sharing with you like what they think is good and what you need to ditch. So that's something we're kind of moving towards, and I think that will really help us measure how successful we are by using the focus group students as well.
Yeah, I like that. That's so true. Especially younger kids, they will just tell you how it is. They don't have the same filters that we've adapted as adults. So I'm going to go to you, Laura, now and ask you the same question. Talk to us about how you measure success.
So I use the Xello reports all the time. I actually tap into the fact that our middle school principals are pretty competitive with each other. So I can put out like, here's the engagement report, and Hamilton Middle School had, their average engagement or logins per student this month was 4.5. And, so I put out reports like that to kind of show where they are, where their lesson completion rates are. We also use it. It's really cool because, we have a lot of teachers, and I still feel like, although they want what's best for the kid, this is a lot of extra work, and we're putting a lot of extra on their plate, especially right now when there's so much extra on their plate. So I do a lot of like, let's look at our sixth graders. And when our sixth graders, there is district-wide, let's say there's 231 kids that out of 20,000 that are going to be professional athletes. And we all know that we're not going to get 231 professional athletes out of Wichita, Kansas. So then I compare those and I say, okay, but by the time this same cohort group gets to their junior year, we now only have 21 professional athletes. And so I can kind of show the trends. We also have a lot of kids. One of our top schools for sixth graders is Harvard, and they're all, it's the top 5% they're going. One of our top 5 they're all going to Harvard. Well, by our senior year, Harvard is not even, the top 10. And so I use that to kind of show those trends to prove, quickly how good the data is working. We also have teacher survey results. So we are reaching out to the teachers who are using it with the students and saying, how effective do you think this is? What do you think we can do better? Because the IPS is much bigger than Xello. Like, Xello is our tool for the individual plan of study. And so we're constantly, there's questions about Xello on there, but there's questions about, the individual plans of study and as a whole, and what all falls into those, and how many activities are we putting together, and how many opportunities are there, and all that kind of thing. We also use the timeline reports a little bit to just as a check to make sure our kids getting on there, and are they understanding that they can go in without a teacher telling them to, and put things on the timeline that they've done. So just kind of making sure that they understand how to use it as a tool for them as well.
Laura, you make data and reports sound so exciting. I love it. It sounds like you guys are having a lot of success with them. Okay, so we are going to go to our next question, but I do want to just pause and prompt everyone on the call with us today. If you haven't entered your question, please use that Q&A button. Our team is keeping an eye out, and we are going to be moving to audience questions soon. Before we do, the next question is, how do you collaborate with others in your district? Anna, I'm going to ask you first. Talk about collaboration. It can be with other educators at the different levels, or even beyond your walls.
Sure. So within our district, the middle school counselor, so we have 2 middle schools. So I meet with the other middle school counselor, and then I meet with the high school, the lead high school counselor, and together we work on the scope and sequence together, and sort of making sure that we're all in alignment and that we're building 6 through 12. So the other middle school and I, my middle school, we're doing the same types of activities and lessons, and so we work together to develop that. And then we also work with our educators. So, at the beginning of the year, PD, we work on doing an overview with all of our teachers to make sure they're familiar with the scope and sequence, to answer any questions. I always reach out to my teachers and say, like, if you want me to come in for any other lessons, then I'm already planned, to come in, let me know, and then I'll come in. Some teachers are more comfortable with like the technology piece than others. So some like me to come in more than others. Others are like, fine, and just keep going with it. And then beyond our district, there's an individual learning plan PLC that we have within the state. And so that's all different educators, counselors, teachers who are involved with the individual learning plan coming together to work together on best practices, sharing different ideas, and also getting professional development on how we can implement. So we collaborate together as a group.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Anna. So Laura, same question for you. Talk to us about how you collaborate with others in your district.
So we collaborate. I mean, I think from a big, we're a really big district. We have 17 middle schools, 8 high schools. So we do with the individual plans, the IPS coordinators that I spoke about earlier, we do have monthly meetings. Typically it's high school and middle school combined. Sometimes we do break out, but there's nobody who knows what the high schools should be doing better than the middle schools. And there's nobody who knows what the middle schools should be doing better than the high schools. So there is a lot of times that they share a lot of good information and insight. We use teams. So we have a team for that. So it's just kind of a place where everybody can share their lessons and share their resources. We share videos, and I make a lot of videos that, that the kids are like, I saw you, I know you. And I'm like, oh yeah. And they show my videos that I make all the time. We use the Xello videos, but we really just try to drop and share resources as much as we can on there, and things that work, things that didn't work. We also, from the district standpoint, we're also very open I am in my area, with all the different ideas, because so many people come across like a community resource that could tie into this. And so we really try to share those community resources. We're very cautious of not just adding more to people's plate, but who's already doing this that can help us. We work closely with the Workforce Center and try to bring them into our middle school days and activities, maybe have them speak. We also work with Reality U and bring them in and as part of our individual plans of study. So we're constantly looking for other community resources that we can bring in and share as kind of a good golden nugget, that we don't have to make anyone work harder, and actually we can take something off their plate. So we do a good job at that as well. And then I referred back to kind of the principals reports in our schools. Typically, this is not one of the number one issues on our principals' plates, but if we can get it presented at their principals meeting, and we can get those principals comparing data and comparing activities, then they start to get a little more interested. So we kind of, I guess, trick the principals into collaborating with us a little bit. And most of them are very supportive. It's just, they've got a lot going on. I say, sometimes working at a middle school is like working in an emergency room, and it's like, what is the fire that's right in front of you? And so we really have to make sure that we really keep these future plans in the forefront.
Yeah, I like that, bringing it back to that sense of competition. That's good. Okay, so before we open up for audience questions, I'm just wondering if either of you have any final advice or key learnings that you'd like to share. Anna, anything on your mind that you'd like to share?
I think the idea of making it a whole school initiative is really important. I heard Laura say something before about like the teachers knowing the interests of students. And I do think that's so important, because I think it helps teachers have like that more personal connection, like get to know their students at a different level if they're talking to them about their interests and their future and their careers. So it's another connection for kids to make with adults in their building. And I do think having it be a whole school initiative is really important. I know that can be hard in some places. I'm not saying that's easy, but it is, I think, beneficial if more people know the information about kids. And the other thing is, I think making sure, and I think Laura actually said this earlier, and it is what it used to be in Rhode Island, that it's not a checkbox. That it's not like, okay, yes, I did this activity, that kids get nothing out of that. There needs to be conversation, there needs to be engagement. And so finding different ways to engage students beyond just like, I did my interest inventory, but what does that mean? And like having conversation with them about it is really, really important.
Yeah, I love that focus on conversations. I think our most successful districts are doing just that. They're not just making it a checklist, but they're really extending the reach and making it part of a larger conversation. Laura, any final advice or anything else you want to share before we move on to audience questions?
I just think, especially at the middle school, we have to keep it fun. It's really hard for a middle school kid to think of what, life is going to look like. So we try to break it down and say, well, what is life going to look like when you're in high school? And then from there, and then, college or not college or whatever. But I think just kind of try to keep it fun and not as serious.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we do have some audience questions, and our team has been monitoring them as they've been coming in. I apologize if we don't get to all of your questions, but we're going to try. So first, this question is for you, Laura. Metra, and I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correctly, Metra said, you mentioned tracking your evidence. What have you found is the best way to track evidence of completed lessons or assignments? I know you can run the reports right in Xello, but do you keep track in any other ways at all?
From a district standpoint, we do not. We run the lesson reports within Xello, and then we do the monthly reports like that. I do have some teachers though that do their own customized lessons, and so a lot of times they're having them submit the different evidence that they've done things, and then they're going in and they're checking whether it is go in and research a company within Wichita that falls that aligns with that career, and so they're having to actually turn in that assignment, and so there are many times that they're graded based on the groups, but we don't really track it any other way besides with the Xello.
Okay. And Anna, this question is for you. Dinah says, could you share any of the custom lessons that your district has created? I would love to see additional lessons that show how districts have students research careers in Xello.
So we have a couple of custom lessons, and I think I've shared maybe a couple of them, but I can always share more. So we have a few for our goal lessons that we upload to Xello, and we have a couple of videos that kids watch. Obviously, I don't have in that the rain activity I just go in and do that. But in Xello itself, I have videos, links for kids. I have a template for SMART goals and what that looks like, so that students sort of have a guide in addition to what we're saying to them in person. So that is one of our custom lessons. Another lesson that we have created is kind of like a scavenger hunt for careers, and so there's a whole list of things that they need to find within Xello, and then they have to put it into Xello afterwards. So they have to list 2 of the careers they're exploring, pick one of those careers, and then find out different things about them, do you need any degrees or licenses or certifications? What skills do you need? Specific things that they can find out within Xello about it. What are your 3 favorite things about the career? What are some pros and cons? I have within it just to check out the interviews that are listed within Xello. There's usually 2 interviews for each career, so to kind of look through that. So that's something that we've done, and I did share that specific lesson, so you should be able to see that. Something my 8th grade English teachers have worked with me on is a research project around careers, because that's one of their standards is the students learning to write a research paper, and it meets a lot of the standards the English teachers had, and we use the career exploration as what the topic is. And so they pick a career and then they write a full research paper about the career, and they can utilize Xello along with other resources to write a research paper about the career, why they're interested, what they need to do, all of the different components to be able to explore that. So that's a really in-depth, robust experience for them. And it's something that we've even had them present the career to their parents at a night, and that can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't miss the research papers from school, but the scavenger hunt, I'm definitely into that one. It sounds like you guys have some great custom lessons built out there. Thank you so much for sharing those. So I think we have time for one final question. This is from someone anonymous. This question is for Laura. So Laura, you talked about the importance of high school, middle school programs being interconnected, right? That's 6 to 12. How would you talk about career exploration with elementary educators? Like any advice on what it would look like for a grade 4 to align to your grade 5 program, for example, or coming into middle school?
Well, so two things. First of all, I'm trying to figure that out myself, because we are in our district, we have our superintendent, and then we have a superintendent of secondary, which is middle school and high school. And then we have a superintendent of elementary. So we are very siloed with high school and middle school and elementary. But we have crossed and worked on that a little. And what I found is there is amazing great career stuff happening in elementary, but it goes back to when they're doing it, but there's not like a strategic structured purpose to it. And we're not really tracking it, at least in our district. And so if we can get to the point where we're streamlining what we're doing in the elementary schools, and then making sure that we're connecting the dots for the students. I don't know how many times, even the high school students have said, yeah, that guy came in and talked to us, or even, I got my OSHA certification card in a class, but they're not thinking about it. They're thinking about that was one thing that I did in this class, and they're not making the connection. So I think we have to be very strategic about making those connections with the kids. My kindergartner had a career day, and so she dressed up for career day, and that was it. They dressed up for career day, and then they came home, and I was asking her, like, what people were, and she's like, I don't really know what Johnny was, and so that's awesome that they're dressing up for career day, but have them go up to the front of the class and say what they are. And maybe the teacher or whoever, let's talk about what it takes to become that person. And let's talk about how in math class, we're learning, shapes, and is there shapes in the construction field or whatever that is. But I think we've got to be so much more strategic about connecting those dots and being purposeful about what those career guidance lessons are at the elementary school, instead of it just being, I guess, maybe again, another check, like I did that, and now we're moving on, and making sure that we're revisiting and that it's a continuum instead of just one here and one there kind of things.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's the best approach. Okay, so we're gonna actually wrap up here. I just want to let everyone know we are here to help. You can visit the Xello Support Center 24/7 at help.xello.world, or get in touch with our amazing client solutions team at help@xello.world, and they will be happy to help you and connect you with the right folks. I also want to let everyone know that next month we're actually pausing our remote roundtable series, as many educators will be knee-deep helping their college-bound students prepare. But we'll be back in March, and in the meantime, you can check out our Xello Support Center. You'll find our training schedule for upcoming live webinars that you can participate in. And in fact, on March 3rd, there's a special Xello training focused on supporting your middle school students. So you guys on the call might be particularly interested in that one. I also wanted to mention, if you're looking for more best practices, you can join us on February 15th for a professional development webinar focused on supporting all pathways. Again, that's really important to us here at Xello. This is part of our PD series in partnership with MCAN, Michigan College Access Network. And it's a 1-hour webinar, again, February 15th, featuring Dr. Laura Owen from San Diego State University. She is going to talk about how you can support all pathways and really create an equitable approach to your CCR program. Again, thank you everyone for joining us for our first remote roundtable of 2022. It was fantastic, and we are so lucky. Thank you, Laura and Anna, for joining us. You guys were wonderful. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Thank you so much.